Why, hi there. It's me, Uncle Ron Solo, as we live by the numbers in episode 105 of the Digital Dice podcast. Dave is helping Aunt Becky move to Canada, where she is reestablishing her career as the 4x6 girl at a Tim Hortons beer store in Timmins, Ontario. It's really sad for Aunt Becky, or even Uncle Becky, because we can do that now. But Dave's helping her this week. Actually, nope. Dave and I will be back together next week for episode 106. Today on the Solo Show, we're going to talk about closed engines and why you should be able to trust them as a good gaming simulator and all that. But first, how to get a hold of us? Well, www.digitaldice.com is where you can find the podcast. That's where everything goes up on Spreaker. And, of course, as soon as we post on Spreaker, it goes up on YouTube as well. You can send us an email at digital2, the word T-O, dice at yahoo.com, or you can send us a text or leave a voicemail that we may or may not play at 978-751-DICE. That's 978-751-3423. Or visit our cafepress.com store, which I believe is also /Digital Dice, to get all sorts of merchandise, including mouse pads, t-shirts, and all that. So thank all 822 of you who are members of the Digital Dice Facebook group. And so hopefully we can get that to 900 before too much longer. It came up this week in conversation, as I'm now, I think, 3 full weeks into my 1984 football replay project on my YouTube channel, Retro Sports Network. Also, you can find me at twitch.tv/Retro Sports Network. We always get some close games or games that kind of defy expectation as we move along. And it's just come up over the years, whether or not, because you can't see the results of how plays are drawn. Just one of the things is just how honest is the game being? Is it sandbagging its way through? Is it keeping count of what's going on? Is it making sure that you have a better result at the end for a better gaming experience? Is it doing anything that isn't random? I think was the topic of conversation. And, you know, between the baseball replays, my own that are posted on my channel, and my own replay projects, and the occasional basketball game, and all the football games and hockey games, my answer to that is no. I think that any computer game that's worth its salt is honest and true. That all replay games kind of go to math. And if the math is solid, your replay results are going to be solid as well. They're not going to be exact, but I believe you have, let's say, the same chance in the first quarter or the first inning or the first period of having a play happen than you do in the third or fourth quarter or eighth inning or with under 5 minutes to go in the third period or of any game. I think, whatever the random number generator is, it is what it is what it is. Now, does that mean that our biases don't change over the course of the game? Well, I think that's more of a factor. If you are playing an AI opponent, as opposed to just playing against yourself, you're going to tend to A, make riskier moves later on in the game, or B, double a player, or C, if you're playing both sides of the ball and let's say football against an AI opponent, you're going to try to go conservative, maybe a little bit too early, or be aggressive if you're behind. Your own biases, I think, are going to come into play, which can change the results of games. If you're, remember, a computer really doesn't care who wins or loses a game. So it just matters, it's going to tell however the AI is set up. It does A, B, and C. It's not going to lose any sleep if you give up if it gives up a 3-run homer and the 9th for a walk-off. If you give up a 3-run homer in the top of the 9th and have to bat in the bottom of the 9th, you're going to be steamed if you are managing the home team. And so you're going to manage a little differently. You might be more aggressive to try and win. You may pull out what the computer still thinks is the better reliever and just go with another arm. You may pull a quarterback, or you might blitz when you shouldn't blitz, or double shift a tired line, or not double team right because it just isn't in the cards for you to do that because think in your head. And I'm not saying that you are right or wrong in any of that and what you want to do to pull off the game, because I don't think any of us play any of these games to be dispassionate about it. And so our own bias is what we think we need to do to win, or to hold on, or to kill a clock, or to get the right amount of outs is what we're going to do. And the computer isn't going to do that. The computer's going, here's my strategy, here's what I've been told to do. As with anything else, whether it's playing a game or processing numbers for anything else, it's garbage in, garbage out. So I think that's the basic dilemma, is that yes, it's not going to think the same way that you are going in. And so it could lead to finishes that are rather wild, that could be rather scripted, possibly. But again, I think that's your perception. Here we go. I'm up 14 points, and I'm down 14 points. I got to do A, B, and C. And the computer's going, I'm up 14 points. I have to play defense A, B, and C. And it's different from how you'd approach that earlier in a game. There is that sort of logic to it. And with closed-engine computer games, the AI does, in some games, track what you're doing. So what might have worked in the first quarter, is it going to work in the fourth quarter? Hopefully this is all making sense. But can you trust the game to play an honest game? Now, the best way to do that, if you're not completely not sure, is just to roll cards and dice. To just have everything on the tabletop and play the old-fashioned way. Can you do you can do whatever you want with those, but it's going to take a long time to do a single-team replay if you're doing anything but a football season. If you want to do a complete 2,100 game, everything, American League, National League, or NHL or NBA season, that's a lot of hours to put into it, playing manual cards and dice. Now, if that's what you want to do, obviously go ahead, but you could see where every result comes from. That's the advantage of an open engine. You could just see, oh, look, I rolled a 610 on Bob Gibson's card in 1968, and it's a strikeout. So I know that that's the result I rolled, and I'll record it as that. If you're playing 1968, let's say an out-of-the-park baseball or Action PC baseball or Diamond Miner or whatever it is that you don't see where the dice rolls come from, it could be the equivalent at 610. He's going to get that strikeout. How the game generates that number, it's not open. You don't know how it got that number. Is it rolling 1,000? Is it generating a random number between 1 and 1,000? Is it generating between 1 and 10,000? You see ratings, how players are rated, but you don't know how that math is done. So I can understand if you're kind of leery of playing some of those games because you just don't know. And so I'm going to give you a couple of examples of why I think the computer games are all pretty much honest up front. Now, the caveat being in Stratomatic and their PC games, which is an open engine, you can set the rules for there to be hidden dice rolls. One of them is curb excess, board game excesses. So let's talk about like a Greg Maddux or a Bob Tewksbury or a Dennis Eckersley, someone who did not throw a lot of walks, or allow a lot of walks. But if you're playing the cards and dice version on the table of a Maddux or an Eckersley or a Tewksbury, because of the very nature of roughly half the results coming from the batter's card, you have a higher. It's going to be very hard for the game to replicate the true real-life walk totals or home run totals because, again, half the results doesn't mean that the game is inaccurate as a whole, but if you only gave up 10 walks in 100 innings, it's going to be tough because of where the results come from. And so there's a setting you can change in the computer game that makes it to correct that. So if it rolled, let's say, on a walk, and it knows that you've already had a walk in the game or whatever the foundation is, it would re-roll that behind the scenes, and what you would see would be the re-roll, not knowing that the original roll or the original result was a walk that was changed to, let's say, a ground out or whatever. I don't think that's the very honest way to play. I don't really like playing that way. If I'm playing a cards and dice game or an open engine game, I want to see where the results come from. I don't want them changed for me. However the math works in a closed engine game, it depends. I know in Digital Diamond Baseball, the dice rolls are out in the open, and it's a mishmash between the batter's card and the pitcher's card, for example. And so what might be a home run on one card, one dice roll, may not be on the other because the pitcher has some control and the batter has some control, and all. Again, it's all basic math. And so although you could see the dice rolls in Digital Diamond, you can't for, like I said, Out of the Park or Action PC. Those are the two main ones that are closed engine games. Baseball Mogul, Football Mogul, again, pretty much anything that's computer based is going to have some sort of hidden dice roll to it, unless it's a straight cards and dice port. So you trust that they're giving the right results. Now, I've done a few full season replays, and here is why. Here's my best example. I did completely offline a few years ago, complete 75-76 New York Islander replay. And because of Brian Trottier is one of my favorite players. I think that in the late 70s, he was a Gretzky-esque type player. He could play offense, he could play defense, he could pass, he could do whatever you wanted. And so I just picked that team because when I was a kid, the Islanders were really, really good. And so I believe in real life, 75-76, Trottier had 95 points. And now over the course of this season in Action PC, without changing any of the numbers, Trottier had 135 points. It didn't try to cap him. I believe he scored more goals. He certainly had more assists than he had in real life. It didn't get to the point where, oops, he's over. We must artificially cut down chances. I controlled the line changes. The team did really, really well. I got the Islanders to the Stanley Cup final. We took game one in Montreal and then promptly lost the next four, as you should, to the 75-76 Canadiens. You've seen in some of my replays before, well, the Nationals, the Washington National Senators, in my 49 replay, won 17 more games than they did in real life. They were a 50-win team in 1949 in real life, and they won 67 in my replay. And as a result of that, the losses had to come from someplace else, and they were the Red Sox. The Red Sox underperformed against both the Nationals and the White Sox. Do I think the game cheated to get to that? No, I don't think the game cheated at all. I think that it was just a combination of, again, the computer being programmed to do what it's supposed to do compared to what I might try to do to force an issue for my own biases, whether I want them to win or lose or slumps or whatever, because I think as human players, we react to what we're shown. And there's always going to be, I think, a little bit of self-doubt when you don't see where the results come from. Why can some days one player do really, really well, and then the next two times, let's say you put Pedro Martinez on the hill and he gets lit up, you're not seeing where those results came from. I know games such as Out of the Park Baseball and Action PC let you see a tremendous amount of stats, and you can compare them to real life stats. Dave and I were talking the other day about Action PC football. And yes, you do manage the coach in the fourth quarter differently than you would in the first three quarters, because if you're behind by a couple touchdowns, you're foregoing the running game. You've got to go the pass. You've got to score. Pass defenses want to give you yardage because they want you to take off clock and yada, yada, yada. And so I looked into the stats for yards per game, points per game, pass completion from the last completed replay I did, which was 1986, where I played roughly 20, 25 games of that online. And the computer sent the rest. In real life, in 1986, the computer, or the real NFL quarterbacks completed 55.4% of passes. On the replay, NFL quarterbacks completed 55.5% of passes. I believe average yards per game in the air was within 1. Same with points, was within a point, and rushing yards was only within a couple either way. It just was so pinpoint, it was scary. But again, how do you trust that the computer isn't shaving off numbers? Well, if you're not sure, just take some time with these games when you buy them just to play. Just play it as you normally would. Even though the action, I know, speaking as an Action PC fan, that the engine is closed, they tell you a lot when you go to select a play. For a running play, they tell you what the percentage is that this play is going to be for positive yardage, what percentage of chances this play is going to break for a first down, what percentage chance it's going to break for a touchdown. You don't see the dice rolls. You don't know any of that, but you know when you call the play that it's what your odds are. Odds are in your favor that, yes, Greg James is going to get more than 5 yards on this play. I need 6. He's got a 42% chance of converting a first down. I like my chances. That it doesn't tell you that, let's say in some 3 10-sided dice, you need to roll between a 1 and a 420 to do it. You're not seeing what that is, but you got to go with your intuition. More often than not, odds are odds. The same thing about you have an 80% chance of having that runner come home. You don't see the dice roll. You're going to, again, assume that on the dice roll 1 to 800 is safe and 801 to 999 is an out. And just because you don't see it and it's an out doesn't mean that the game is trying to fix things for you. I guess I just have enough experience to trust that. Again, the thing with Trottier, with all the he scored 40 more points in the replay than he did in real life, just because of how I played him. After doing that, and after seeing how well they play, and after all the football games I know, and I just trust that the programming behind the game is solid enough to get the result, win, lose, or draw, to make me feel like I've had an honest game. That if I've lost the game, it's something that I did, or sometimes you're just playing the better team, but you can always go back and say, should I have sent that runner? Should I have punted on the fourth down? Do I trust my defense? Maybe I should have tried less three-pointers, or I got to work the puck around better because all I did, it's great that I put 40 shots on net, but if 26 come from my defenseman, that's not good. That's not solid hockey theory or strategy. What did I do to cause that team to lose or cause that team to win? You can read manuals and they'll tell you what the AI will track and what they won't track. And it's true. What works in the first part of a game isn't always going to work in the second part of the game. And how do I, as the human coach, adjust to that? Because no matter how good the AI is, you, as a human player, especially if you're playing a team that you're familiar with, are going to have the distinct advantage. You know who to go to late. If you're playing, let's say, the mid-'80s Lakers, magic to Kareem. Magic to whoever's open. That's where you go with until they shut that down. And the computer will pick up on that, and then you have to adjust them back and forth. The major advantage of computer replays is you can sim a season as many times as you want. Go through the stats. Open up a sports reference page. Go, okay, they got this right, they got that right. It doesn't mean that if someone hit 38 home runs in real life, there's a possibility they could have hit 14, and there's a possibility they could hit 50. That doesn't mean the game engine is flawed or any of that. But if overall, if your league hit 257 in one particular year and you pull it up and it's at 256, that's extremely accurate. That's deadly accurate. Math doesn't care about game situations. Math cares about math. So math doesn't really care about anything. We're the ones solving for X. We're the ones that are adjusting to it. If you're on the fence about a closed engine game, again, just take the time and play a best of 7 series. If it doesn't seem realistic to you, if it feels like it's doing things behind the scenes, then don't feel like you're forced to play that. Go back to playing what you feel comfortable with. But also go back and read. There's game logs for so many different things. Go back and read some of these things. Anything can happen on any given play. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And again, we have our own biases for what we expect it to happen in a game without taking the time. Really, we go back and I remember this player did X. Okay, well, the reality is that this player either exceeded at X or struggled with Y or really couldn't do Z. And so the game kind of has to adjust for all that. And there's just a lot of things in play. And for most of these games, they also have to be able to accurately replay or give you the experience you want from a variety of different eras. I mean, there's the 2 dead ball eras in baseball and football. You've got eras where it really is 3 yards in a choking cloud of AstroTurf, to today's game where you've got where short passes have taken a lot of the runs away. In basketball, it's a much more 3-point driven sport than it was 20 years ago because there's just too many bigger people on the inside to score there. And so all these games have to figure all that into an account and trying to come up with an AI that handles all that right. But again, that's all based on the math. It's looking at the numbers and say, okay, I need to get this, that, and the other thing right. By and large, it will. And that's the thing. So if you're on the fence about that, or if you're just not sure, try it out for yourself. I know some of these games have a 30-day money-back guarantee. They want you to be comfortable with their games. There are some things that you're just going to have a hard time to get accurate results for. Golf, for instance, because there's so many different things and the course conditions you really can't simulate down to this and down to that and the other thing. When you're doing any sort of what if. For me, there's 2 things I look for in any game. Does it feel like the era that I'm trying to reproduce, whether if it's a 70s baseball season or 80s football season? Does it vaguely tick the boxes of what my fuzzy memories are? And B, when everything is said and done, when you look at it and go, wow, okay, Walter Payton ran for 1,534 yards in season A, and on the computer season he ran for 1,497. Oh, that's much more than acceptable. It's within 40 yards of that. So again, the computer doesn't care what the results are. There's no emotional attachment. It doesn't care if the Yankees win 100 games. It doesn't care if the 76ers lose 75. It doesn't care if Yas hits 400. It doesn't care if Ted Williams strikes out 517 times. It just takes the data it's given, it chomps it out, and it spits back out a result. And Just because we can't see those results, it doesn't mean that the games are being honest or not honest. The sad thing is, I know with some of the Stratomatic games is that you can change some of those settings behind the scenes, and I think that leads to, A, you can get a better performance because it does correct some of the outliers if you want in playing a board game, but B, I think just kind of gives everyone the thought in their head that you can manipulate what the game gives you for a result. And really, in any game, whether you're playing against AI or no AI, you're playing against yourself. And as the game situation changes, you adjust in your mind for what you have to do to get what you want right or not right. And I can personally vouch that for both OOTP and the Action PC games, that what you're getting is what you're getting, and you're reacting to very competent AI that gets better each and every time, and the tougher it is against you, the more you have to think to play against it. And if you get behind, you're going to be more aggressive, or if you're way ahead, you're going to get more conservative, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I think unless you have an experience where, okay, I had a 46-0 lead in the fourth quarter and I lost 48-46, that's not realistic. Or the stats were well skewed. We averaged this in real life and it really, really hot. If I averaged 8 yards of completion for the league and it came out 16, okay, there's something screwed up with the math. But again, for closed engine games, it doesn't care about the result. Math takes care of itself. Just like with any game, you play it the way that it's properly supposed to be played. The math takes care of itself. All right, so shoot me down or whatever there, but I think the closed engine games you see in our channels play the game correctly and play the game as honestly as it can and adjusts at the right time. Share your thoughts in the comments below about what you like and what you don't like about closed engine games. There certainly is something to be said about seeing the results of every play that you get. So you can say, oh yeah, okay, I rolled that and it was a pass completion for 27 yards and it got me into field goal range to kick that field goal when I couldn't move the football the entire game. I understand why that's important. You want to be able to, that's why we watch these things. You want to see things with your own eyes and not necessarily blindly believe what the computer spits out. But as long as the computer is giving you solid stats for everything, so that's that. So tell me what you think. All right. Here's again how to get a hold of us. Join us on Facebook at Facebook groups /DigitalDice. Email is digitaldice@yahoo.com. One word for two. www.digitaldice.com. Get you to the Spreaker page where all of our shows are posted. And the text line and voice line 978-751-DICE, 978-751-3423. Dave and I are back at it again really soon. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time, living by those numbers.